Mrs. Hill is working with a group of energetic 5-year-olds, teaching them how to read, which is always full of surprises. During reading time, little Johnny is flipping through a zoo book, focused and trying to sound out words. Suddenly, his face lights up, and with all the excitement in the world, he shouts,
"Look at this! It's a freaking elephant!"
Mrs. Hill freezes for a moment, unsure if she's heard him correctly. The other kids are too absorbed in their own books to notice, but the teacher knows this needs addressing. Taking a deep breath and trying to stay calm, the teacher approaches Johnny and asks,
"Johnny, what did you just call it?"
Johnny, without a second thought, looks up with wide eyes and says,
"It's a freaking elephant!"
Shocked, Mrs. Hill exclaims,
"Johnny, we do not use that kind of language." "But, Mrs. Hill,"
protests Johnny.
"it says so right here in the picture."
Johnny proudly points at the page, completely unaware that he might have just said something inappropriate. Confused, Johnny's teacher bends down to take a look at what Johnny is pointing to. And there it is, printed in bold letters under the image. AFRICAN, elephant. A Frenchman, an Englishman, and a New Yorker are captured by a tribe of cannibals. The chief approaches them and says,
"I've got some bad news and some good news for you,"
his voice full of dark amusement.
"The bad news is that we're going to kill you, put you in a pot, cook you, and then feast on you. After that, we'll use your skin to make a fine canoe."
The chief pauses, letting the horror sink in.
"The good news," he adds, "is that you each get to choose how you want to die."
The Frenchman steps up first.
"I shall take the sword,"
says the Frenchman. The chief hands him a sword, and the Frenchman holds it high, shouting,
"Vive la France!"
before running the blade through himself. Next, it's the Englishman's turn. "Might I have a pistol?" he asks with impeccable politeness, despite the dire situation. The chief, intrigued by the man's composure, hands him a pistol. The Englishman stands tall, salutes, and says,
"God save the Queen!"
before pulling the trigger. Finally, the New Yorker steps forward. "Give me a fork," he demands. The chief, completely baffled but too curious to object, hands him a fork. Without hesitation, the New Yorker begins stabbing himself repeatedly with the fork while yelling, "Good luck with your frickin' canoe!" A man walks into a bar with his pet monkey. He orders a drink, and while he's drinking, the monkey jumps all around the place. First, the monkey grabs some olives off the bar and eats them. Then he grabs some sliced limes and eats those too. Finally, the monkey jumps onto the pool table, grabs one of the billiard balls, and sticks it in his mouth. To everyone's amazement, he somehow swallows the ball whole. The bartender screams at the guy.
"Did you see what your monkey just did?"
The guy asks,
"No, what?"
"Why, he just ate the cue ball off my pool table, whole,"
says the bartender.
"Yep, that doesn't surprise me,"
replies the guy.
"He eats everything in sight." "Sorry, I'll pay for the cue ball and everything."
He finishes his drink, pays his bill, pays for the stuff the monkey ate, then leaves. 2 weeks later, the man returns to the bar with his monkey with him. He orders a drink, and the monkey starts running around the bar again. While the man is finishing his drink, the monkey finds a maraschino cherry on the bar. He grabs it, sticks it up his butt, pulls it out, and eats it. The bartender is disgusted.
"Did you see what your monkey did now?"
asks the bartender.
"No, what?"
asks the man.
"Well, he stuck a cherry up his butt, pulled it out, and ate it,"
says the bartender.
"Yep, that doesn't surprise me at all,"
replies the man.
"He still eats everything in sight, but ever since he swallowed that cue ball, he measures everything first."
After being deployed overseas for over a year, a soldier finally returns home to his wife. But that first night back, something unexpected happens. His wife suddenly becomes really sick, clutching her stomach, looking pale and weak. The soldier, always quick to act under pressure, rushes her to the doctor in the middle of the night. They arrive at the clinic, and the doctor takes his wife into an examination room while the soldier waits nervously in the waiting area. A few minutes later, the doctor comes out looking calm but serious and asks,
Can I speak to you in private?
The soldier follows him into an office, his heart pounding, bracing himself for some bad news. The doctor closes the door behind them and turns to the soldier with a grave look.
Your wife is pregnant.
The soldier's eyes widen in shock. His mouth opens, but no words come out at first. He finally manages to stammer, Pregnant? But how is that possible? I've been overseas for over a year. The doctor sighs and gives him a knowing look.
This is what we call a grudge pregnancy.
The soldier furrows his brow, completely confused. A grudge pregnancy? What does that even mean? The doctor leans back in his chair and says,
Well, someone must have had it in for you.
Two old men, Bob and Jack, were sitting on a park bench feeding the pigeons and talking about baseball. Bob turned to Jack and asked,
Do you think there's baseball in heaven?
Jack thought about it for a moment and replied,
I don't know. But let's make a deal. If I die first, I'll come back and tell you if there's baseball in heaven. And if you die first, you do the same.
They shook on it. Sadly, a few months later, poor Bob passed away. Soon afterward, Jack was sitting in the park, feeding the pigeons by himself, and heard a voice whisper,
Jack! Jack!
Jack replied,
Bob, is that you?
Yes, it is!
whispered Bob's ghost. Jack, still amazed, asked,
So, is there baseball in heaven?
Well,
said Bob,
I've got some good news and some bad news.
Give me the good news first.
Jack said excitedly.
Well,
Said Bob.
there is baseball in heaven.
Jack says,
That's great. What news could ruin that?
Bob sighs and whispers,
You're pitching on Friday.
Little Johnny is making faces at the other little children on the playground during recess. Miss Smith, his teacher, notices this and stops to gently reprimand him. Smiling sweetly, the teacher says,
Johnny, when I was a little girl, I was told that if I made ugly faces, it would freeze and I would stay like that forever.
Little Johnny pauses and looks up at her with curiosity in his eyes.
Really, Miss Smith?
Miss Smith nods, maintaining her gentle smile.
Yes, Johnny, that's what they told me. It's not very nice to make faces at others, and you wouldn't want your face to freeze like that, would you?
Johnny looks down at the ground as he considers this for a moment, then looks back up at Miss Smith.
No, ma'am.
Replies little Johnny.
But you can't say you weren't warned.
A devoted wife had spent her lifetime taking care of her husband. Lately, he had been slipping in and out of a coma for several months, yet she stayed by his bedside every single day. When he came to, he motioned for her to come near him. As she sat by him, he said,
You have been with me all through the bad times. When I got fired, you were there to support me. When my business failed, you were there. When I got shot, you were by my side. When we lost the house, you gave me support. When my health started failing, you were still by my side. You know what?
he asked.
What, dear?
She asked gently. The man took a deep breath and replied,
I think you bring me bad luck.
A group of friends heads to Las Vegas for a wild weekend of gambling. Among them is a man named Jerry. Jerry is usually not much of a gambler, but on the second day of their trip, he hits it big at the blackjack table. We're not talking a few $100 here. No, Jerry walks away with $100,000 in cold hard cash. His heart races with excitement, but he immediately decides to keep it a secret. After all, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? Soon, Jerry's thoughts spiral into a frenzy of paranoia. He imagines his friends, hands held out, demanding a share. "Nope, not happening," he mutters under his breath. So, he comes up with a plan. Instead of flying back with his friends, Jerry books a later flight. Then he sneaks back home in the dead of night. The neighborhood is dead silent as he quietly steps into his backyard, shovel in hand. After glancing around to make sure no one's watching, he digs a deep hole and buries the cash. The next morning, Jerry wakes up early, filled with a sense of accomplishment. He steps outside, ready to marvel at his hidden fortune, only to find an empty hole staring back at him. His heart drops. Panic sets in as he notices a set of footprints leading from his backyard straight to the house next door, which belongs to a deaf man. On the same street lives a professor who understands sign language and is a friend of the neighbor. Fueled by rage and panic, Jerry grabs his pistol, storms over to the professor's house, and bangs on his door. "You're coming with me," Jerry demands, dragging the bewildered man across the street to the deaf neighbor's house. Bursting through the door, Jerry waves his gun around and shouts,
Tell him that if he doesn't give me back my 100 grand, I'm gonna kill him!
The professor, visibly shaken, turns to the deaf man and begins signing furiously, relaying Jerry's terrifying message. The deaf man, calm as ever, signs back, "I hid it in my backyard, underneath the cherry tree." The professor hesitates, then turns to Jerry and, after a deep breath, says,
He's not going to tell you. He said he'd rather die first.